My name is Jenna, and I'm 35 years old. Recently, my relatives announced that I was an unwelcome guest at their traditional Thanksgiving celebration. The reason for their refusal was their fear that my recent divorce might cast a shadow on the family's reputation. Instead of sitting alone, I decided to organize my own lavish celebration in my new, 7-figure home, gathering 30 people who were genuinely happy to be in my presence. After photos from the banquet went viral across all platforms, my phone literally wouldn't stop ringing with messages and calls. What city are you watching us from right now? Share your location in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe if you've ever felt like an outcast among your loved ones. Stay with us, you definitely don't want to miss the rest of this story. In reality, this saga began a year and a half ago, although at the time, I paid it no mind. That evening, I was just scrolling through my newsfeed during a typical workday, ignoring sharp text messages from my mother, when her call came through, and she immediately delivered her harsh verdict on the holiday dinner. "Jenna, we need to discuss the logistics of the annual gathering," she said, in the tone she usually reserves for scolding contractors for shoddy repairs. "Your father, Tom, and I have concluded that it would be best for you to sit this year out." The words nearly made me drop my glass of Merlot. Sit it out? Mom, this is a cornerstone family event, not an optional sports tournament. Stop being dramatic. It's just that with everything that's happened, your recent split and all that comes with it, it would create unbearable tension for everyone there. The Johnsons are coming. You know what gossips they are. Besides, your cousin Madison just got engaged to that handsome lawyer. We don't want your personal troubles to spoil her moment. My troubles. As if the fact that my ex-husband, David, had started an affair with his personal trainer was a personal choice I'd made to cause a scene at a family dinner. Mom, my problems aren't contagious. You can't catch a divorce by eating mashed potatoes next to me. Jenna, drop the sarcastic humor. We're just thinking about what's best for the entire family. Maybe you could take the kids somewhere. Start your own special holiday traditions. How about a trip to Seattle or Dallas? The kids. I thought of my 8-year-old twin daughters, Emily and Olivia, who were eagerly looking forward to seeing their grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, and who had even made paper turkey crafts specifically to decorate Grandma Patricia's refrigerator. And what exactly am I supposed to tell Emily and Olivia? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Tell them Mom decided to surprise them. A special holiday just for the 3 of you. They're still young. They'll accept it easily. No, they'll understand something else entirely, that their grandparents didn't want to see them because their mom couldn't keep her marriage together. I could already picture the bewildered look on Emily's face when I'd have to explain why we weren't going to the big family dinner she'd been talking about for weeks. This is completely insane, Mom. I'm your daughter. Of course, you are, dear. That's why we're trying to spare you the embarrassment. Guests will surely ask questions, demand scandalous details about the breakup. It will be better for everyone this way. Better for whom? The thought pierced through me. Certainly not for me, sitting alone with my girls while the rest of the family gathered around the very table where I had spent every Thanksgiving for the past 35 years. But here's what my mother didn't know yet. What was a secret to all of them? The financial negotiations of my divorce settlement were nearing their conclusion, and David's attempts to hide marital assets had failed spectacularly. My lawyer had been meticulously working on the case for over a year, and the forensic accountant's findings were sensational. Our modest suburban home, where we once lived, was about to become a distant memory. Let me pause here and tell you how this whole messy situation began, because the timeline is crucial, and believe me, it has to get a lot worse before it gets better. 14 months ago, I was still Jenna Palmer, a devoted wife and mother living in our ordinary suburban home in New Haven, Connecticut. I had no idea that my husband, the director and owner of his own gym, was spending his time there engaged in activities that had nothing to do with strength training. I discovered David's infidelity the way most wives do, by pure chance, born from a nagging feeling that something was wrong. He started staying late at his club, going away for sports conferences on weekends that didn't appear on any federation schedules I could find online. His cell phone developed a strange habit of always being face down, and his shower suddenly included a mandatory application of expensive cologne at 8 in the evening. The gotcha moment came when my daughter Emily needed to pick up a forgotten gym bag from his club. I decided to surprise David by bringing him lunch there. I'd done it countless times before, usually calling ahead, but that day I wanted to be spontaneous, to do something romantic to shake up a marriage that had settled into a comfortable but boring routine. I walked into his private office at the club, holding a pizza box from our favorite Italian spot, expecting to find him drafting workout plans or managing the business. Instead, I found him intently studying the anatomy of his personal trainer with his mouth. Her name was Caitlin, she was 24, had luxurious red hair, and, apparently, incredible flexibility, judging by the position I found them in on the massage table. The pair was so engrossed in their activity that they didn't notice me at all, frozen in the doorway with a pizza box whose smell suddenly seemed nauseating. I stood there in a stupor for what felt like an eternity, though it was probably just moments, watching my husband apply skills that are definitely not taught in personal training courses. What I did next shocked even me. I didn't scream, I didn't throw the food on the floor, I didn't create the kind of theatrical scene you see in movies. I just raised my smartphone and started recording. "Please, don't mind me," I said calmly when they finally saw me. "I'm sure your gym members would be interested to learn about this level of personal service." David recoiled from Caitlin so sharply that he almost fell off the massage table. "Jenna, it's not what you think," he stammered. "Really? Because it looks to me like you're violating every possible code of ethics and probably the internal regulations of your own gym." I kept filming as Caitlin scrambled to find her uniform and David frantically adjusted his pants. "Should I send this video to the board of the Athletic Association, or do you want to explain it to them yourself?" It was in that moment that his true colors were revealed. Instead of pleading for forgiveness or apologizing, he exploded with rage. "If you hadn't just shown up here unannounced, none of this would have happened." Of course. My mistake for not booking an appointment to visit my own husband. How thoughtless of me. You know exactly what I mean. You've grown distant, Jenna. Always exhausted, always busy with the girls. A man has needs, you know. And there it was. The classic excuse of an unfaithful partner. Somehow, his inability to control his desires in his own gym had become my personal failing as a wife. As I turned to leave, Caitlin finally broke her silence. "Mrs. Palmer, I'm so sorry. It just happened, I didn't want it to. We didn't plan this." I looked at this young woman who had just destroyed my family, and to my surprise, I felt a wave of compassion. "Honey, you're not the first woman he's done this with, and you won't be the last. But congratulations, you've just been given the opportunity to see what kind of man David really is." I had no idea that I myself was about to get an even deeper look into David's true nature. And it turned out to be far more horrifying than simple infidelity. You'd probably think that exposing a cheating husband would guarantee you the full support of your family, right? Wrong. Apparently, in the family rulebook of decency, public opinion is more important than the fact that your husband betrayed you. I dialed my mother's number the moment I left David's gym, desperately needing someone to confirm that I wasn't going crazy from the betrayal I had just witnessed. "Mom, I just caught David with his personal trainer. In his office, on the massage table." A long silence followed. "Jenna, are you sure you're not exaggerating? Maybe it was some kind of misunderstanding. Unless the fitness industry now considers that kind of contact a standard stretching session, then I'm sure. You don't need to be so crude. These things sometimes happen in a marriage. You have to work together to get through it. Get through it." As if infidelity was just a small crack that could be fixed with a little spackle and effort. "Mom, he's having an affair with his employee, at his place of work. Marriage is constant work, dear. Sometimes people make mistakes when they feel unloved or neglected." My own mother, without even hearing David's side, had already decided that I bore some responsibility for what happened. So I'm just supposed to accept this and pretend nothing happened? I suggest you think about Emily and Olivia first before you make any rash decisions. Children need a stable home, not a broken one. A stable home where the father constantly betrays the mother, and the mother pretends everything is perfectly fine. Where the daughters are taught that true love means tolerating betrayal, and a woman should be grateful for the meager scraps of respect she receives. My father's reaction was just as disheartening. When I arrived at their house that evening with the girls, in desperate need of a temporary refuge while I figured out my next steps, he pulled me aside. "Jenna, I've always had a lot of respect for David. He's a provider, a good father. Every marriage goes through tough times. This isn't just a tough time, Dad. This is adultery. There's no need for such dramatic words. Look, I understand you're emotional, but a divorce is forever. It's a blow to your reputation. It jeopardizes your daughter's future. My reputation. Not my happiness, not my self-worth, not the life lesson my children would learn. Only my standing in a society where, apparently, being a divorcee was worse than being a victim of deceit. And what about David's business reputation? Shouldn't the fact that he cheated on his wife affect his status in some way? Men and women are allowed different mistakes. Society accepts it, but a divorced woman, especially with children, finds herself in a much more difficult situation, one that's hard to find a respectable way out of. My brother Kevin's response was the most infuriating. "Jenna, you need to be realistic. David makes good money, he provides health insurance, and he has a profitable business. Are you really willing to throw all that away over one mistake, even if there were more? Is it worth breaking up your family?" He continued without letting me get a word in. "Emily and Olivia need their father. They need parents who live under the same roof, financial security, and a complete family. You haven't worked in years. How are you going to manage? Do you think you can support 2 daughters on some random job?" In that critical moment, I realized, my family didn't see me as a beloved daughter and sister, but rather as a problem maker. A woman whose value was entirely defined by her ability to maintain a marriage, regardless of how degrading it was to her dignity. What they didn't know at all was that I had already found Alicia Jones, one of the most formidable divorce attorneys in New Haven. And Alicia already had some very serious questions about David's financial documents. "You remember how my family kept going on about his reliability and ability to provide for the family? It turned out his financial capabilities were far greater than we thought, but he preferred to direct those funds anywhere but towards the needs of our family. My lawyer, Alicia Jones, is a professional whose power suits look like actual armor. She built her reputation by systematically dismantling every trick that unfaithful spouses use to hide assets. Jenna, your husband has approached his bookkeeping with remarkable creativity. We're going to have to dig deep on this one. David insisted that his gym was in financial trouble and that he could barely afford minimal child support. But the forensic accountant Alicia brought in, after months of scrutinizing suspicious documents, discovered some very curious discrepancies. We found invoices for gym equipment at clearly inflated prices, bills for trips unrelated to any fitness conference, and rent payments to some management company that doesn't seem to exist, Alicia explained during one of our long meetings. He was actively using his business to funnel cash flows to make his real profits look much smaller. This thorough investigation dragged on for a full 7 months. 8 months were spent on a detailed analysis of his finances, preparing subpoenas and mandatory disclosures. As a result, we uncovered a scheme of systematic asset fraud that had been operating for at least 2 years. This included a secret corporate account that Caitlin also had access to, real estate investments in his mother's name, and even a small studio downtown that he listed as equipment storage, but was furnished with a comfortable bed and stocked with a collection of high-end liquor. When we finally presented our evidence at the settlement meeting, all of David's self-assurance evaporated faster than his false stories about a lack of money. His lawyer looked as if he had aged 10 years during our presentation. "These allegations are completely unfounded," David muttered. "I have provided full and honest information about my financial situation." Alicia casually slid a printout of bank transactions across the table. Then please explain this series of transfers totaling $65,000 to accounts in Delaware. David's face instantly turned ashen. Those are legitimate business-related investments. What business, exactly? Because according to the documents we've obtained, these accounts appear to have been opened specifically to hide marital assets from your wife. The settlement negotiations, in which David had expected to pay minimal child support and keep the majority of the assets, took a completely different turn. By the end of that grueling day, I walked away with an agreement that guaranteed me half of all the hidden property, as well as a substantial compensation for his attempts at financial fraud. But the real gift came when Alicia handed me a folder labeled Property Valuation. Your settlement includes enough for a significant down payment on a very respectable home, Jenna. The kind of house that will speak volumes about your new independence. Over the following weeks, I threw myself into house hunting in the most exclusive neighborhoods of New Haven. I wasn't looking for a mansion because I needed one, but because I wanted David and my family to understand just how wrong they were about me as a divorced woman with children. I found a mansion that exceeded all my expectations. It was a stunning French-style stone cottage, situated on 3 acres of picturesque land in the elite area of Westport. Inside, there was plenty of room for comfort, 4 bedrooms, multiple bathrooms, a professionally equipped kitchen, and a stunning recreational area with a pool. It was a home my relatives couldn't even dream of, assuming it was far beyond my means. When I made an offer on the house 3 months later, for the first time in years, I signed with my maiden name, Jenna Wilson. I felt I had finally found my true identity, shedding the image that had been imposed on me. The sellers quickly approved my deal. Thanks to the significant sum received as compensation and my flawless credit rating, all formalities were completed in a record 6 weeks. As I signed the final documents, I couldn't help but think of David's face when he found out what the money he had tried so hard to hide had been spent on. However, I didn't yet know that his financial schemes were just the tip of the iceberg of his true nature. Starting life in the new house felt like a long-awaited liberation. The previous owners had left some of their exquisite furniture, and in just 2 months, I was living in a space filled with luxury and order. Emily and Olivia adapted to the change with childlike ease. Emily chose a room overlooking the quiet, well-tended yard, while Olivia preferred a bedroom with a beautiful view of the pool. Their sincere joy was healing, and for the first time in a year and a half, I felt true happiness. But my greatest satisfaction didn't come from the house itself. It was the moment I saw David's reaction when he first came to pick up the girls. His premium-class Mercedes looked ridiculous against my spacious driveway and new, impressive property. Quite the status upgrade, he sneered, unable to hide the note of envy in his voice. The terms of our divorce turned out to be extremely favorable, I replied with emphasized cheerfulness. I have you to thank for making it possible. He was clearly about to say something else, but at that moment the girls were already running to his car, excitedly telling him about their new bedrooms and how much fun they'd had in the pool all summer. It was during this period that I began to formulate the plan for my Thanksgiving dinner. If my family truly believed I would be sitting alone, drowning in self-pity, they were in for a big surprise. My first call was to my old friend, Lauren. Our paths had drifted apart during my marriage, but she contacted me as soon as she heard about the divorce, offering help and support without any judgment. Lauren, what are your plans for the holidays this year? Oh, the standard family chaos at my sister's. Why? Want to join me? I'm hosting a grand reception this year. You, Jenna? That's a fantastic idea. Of course, I'll be there. Next was my former college roommate, Claire. She was now living in California but was planning to spend the holiday alone, as her kids were with her ex-husband. Pack your bags, I told her. You're flying to me in Connecticut. One by one, I sent invitations to those who deserved a real celebration. My stylist, Eva, who usually worked without days off. Liam, the guy who makes the best coffee in town. My old friend Mark, who was dreading his first holiday after coming out to his family. And also, my daughter's teachers, who performed daily miracles working with children, but whose contributions went unnoticed. In less than 2 weeks, I had a guest list of 30 people who confirmed their attendance at my holiday dinner. These people embodied for me the true meaning of support, kindness, and a family built by choice, not by blood obligation. I ordered full catering, selected a collection of fine wines, and hired a professional photographer to capture the evening. The menu for this dinner was the complete opposite of what was served at my mother's dull, traditional feasts. We had an exclusive turkey with a mushroom and spice stuffing, beef Wellington with a wine and herb sauce, a rich, creamy seafood gratin, roasted vegetables with unusual Asian spices, and pastries that looked like they came straight from a Parisian bakery. On the eve of Thanksgiving, as I was finishing the final preparations, a call came from my sister, Chloe. "Jenna, Mom told me about your dinner. It sounds very nice." "Chloe, this isn't just a nice little party. It's a full-fledged holiday dinner with people who want to spend it in my company. Look, I understand you're upset about not being invited to Mom and Dad's, but maybe after this holiday, you can all start fresh. Perhaps we can all get together the next day to make up and forget everything." Make up. As if my exclusion from the family circle and the ignoring of my daughters was just some minor oversight. "Chloe, there's nothing to make up for. You all made your decision." But as I hung up the phone, I agreed with her on one thing: this day would undoubtedly mark a new chapter. Thanksgiving Thursday dawned cool and sunny, a perfect November landscape that made Westport look like a postcard. I woke at dawn, not from anxiety, but from the immense anticipation of this special day. Emily and Olivia helped me set the table, arranging place cards and folding linen napkins with the seriousness of experienced event planners. The girls were so inspired by our unusual Thanksgiving that they made gifts and wrote personal notes of gratitude for each guest. "Mommy, this is going to be the best celebration we've ever had," Emily declared, adjusting a vase of flowers for the third time. "I think you're absolutely right, sweetie." The caterers arrived at noon, instantly transforming my kitchen into a smooth, professional workspace. The photographer came early to capture the preparatory atmosphere, and soon my house was filled with lively sounds and appetizing aromas worthy of being chronicled. Guests began to arrive by 3 o'clock, and the energy in the house was starkly different from any family gathering I had ever attended. These were people who genuinely wanted to be there, who were grateful for my hospitality, and who brought joy with them, not a sense of obligation. My former roommate, Claire, flew in specially from California, and our reunion was filled with joyous, girlish delight. Lauren brought her elderly mother, Mrs. Patterson, who had recently been widowed and was afraid of being alone on the holiday. My friend Mark, who didn't want to celebrate alone, and Liam, our barista, each came with their partners. Liam was with his girlfriend, and both looked absolutely happy to be among people who accepted them, not just tolerated them. Eva, my stylist, brought her 3 children, who immediately hit it off with Emily and Olivia, playing enthusiastically in the backyard near the large pool and elaborate play structure. My daughter's teachers were impressed by the elegant setting, remarking that this event outshone any corporate party. As we all took our seats at my enormous dining table, I felt a deep satisfaction that was unattainable at any family gathering. These people were here by their own choice, grateful for the invitation and bringing with them an atmosphere of joy, not heavy familial duty. It was time for the traditional toast, where everyone was to voice their gratitude. The guests shared their feelings from the heart. Mrs. Patterson expressed her appreciation for the friendship that had become a new family for her. Claire noted the value of a friendship that could cross any distance. Liam gave thanks for the opportunity to be with his loved one on this day. When my turn came, I looked at these wonderful people gathered together in my luxurious home, enjoying this dinner. My gratitude today is for the courage to build a life of my own, one that aligns with my true principles, not the conditional expectations of others. The photographer captured every moment, the loud laughter at the table, the carefree games of the children, and the instant warm connections formed between strangers who suddenly became friends. By the end of the evening, we had a collection of shots documenting what a true celebration looks like. After the last guests, genuinely delighted, left the house, calling it the best Thanksgiving of their lives, I immediately uploaded the best pictures online. I didn't do it to spite anyone, but because I was sincerely proud of the magic we had managed to create. The reaction was immediate and astounding. My social media pages were flooded with comments from old acquaintances, new friends, and even strangers who had seen the photos shared by my guests. "This looks absolutely incredible. What a soulful celebration. You are living your best life." But the messages I was really interested in came in the form of phone calls, starting around 10 p.m. The first to call was my brother, Kevin. "Jenna, I saw your photos. Looked like quite a large event." It was. It was a wonderful evening with people who appreciate my company. Then my sister, Chloe, called. "Your holiday table looked so elegant and beautiful." "Thanks. Maybe next year we can all get together to combine our holidays." Next year. As if after being uninvited this year, an invitation for next year was a given for them. But the call I was truly waiting for came around midnight. It was my mother, Patricia, her voice tense with a strain I couldn't immediately place. "Jenna, I saw your photographs." It was a very ostentatious celebration. Yes, it was magnificent. I had 30 guests. Everyone was thrilled. 30 people. That's far more than we had at our table. I just wanted to make sure that everyone who deserved a celebration was surrounded by care. There was a long pause. "I hope you realize that this public display has cast our entire family in a very poor light. The Johnsons saw your pictures. Madison's fiancé's parents saw them too. Everyone is talking about how you deliberately left your own family out in the cold." And there it was, the real reason. They weren't upset that I had been excluded. They were furious that I had managed to thrive without them. But as I hung up the phone and looked around my beautiful, quiet home, a crucial realization hit me. For the first time in my life, I absolutely did not care what they thought of me. That feeling of freedom was about to bring me more than I could ever have imagined. The aftermath of my Thanksgiving feast was even more entertaining than the event itself. Within 2 weeks, I started getting calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone suddenly developed a keen interest in reconnecting with their dear friend Jenna. Distant relatives, who had somehow obtained my new number, sent long messages about how important it is for family to stick together. My Aunt Debbie, my father's sister, who had openly criticized my life choices for years, left several voicemails praising my entrepreneurial spirit and asking if I wanted to invest in her son Aaron's startup. The most amusing visit was from my former sister-in-law, Samantha, David's sister, who had completely disappeared during our divorce. She showed up at my door unannounced on a Saturday morning, holding a store-bought muffin and wearing her fakest, most apologetic smile. "Jenna, I just haven't had a moment to call. I feel so terrible about how things turned out with David," she said. "Really?" I asked, making no move to invite her in. "Because I seem to recall you taking his side pretty clearly during the divorce proceedings." I was just trying to stay neutral. You know how hard it is when it comes to family loyalty. Family loyalty. The same loyalty that didn't stop her from telling her friends that I was probably unfaithful too, and that the real victim in this situation was her brother, David. "How can I help you, Samantha?" I asked. "Well, I was hoping we could put the past behind us. Maybe get dinner sometime. And let the kids play together again. Nolan really misses Emily and Olivia." Nolan was her 10-year-old son, who had been Olivia's inseparable friend until the divorce drew predictable family lines. Samantha had made it clear that her son would not be setting foot in that woman's house. "The timing is interesting," I noted. "What made you change your mind?" She shifted uncomfortably. "I just think life is too short to hold grudges." Life is too short, or my current financial status is too significant? I was leaning towards the latter, especially when she casually added that she had seen the photos from my party and thought my mansion was absolutely magnificent. However, the most interesting part began when my immediate family stepped up their attempts to fix what they now clearly saw as a catastrophic miscalculation. My mother, Patricia, started sending lavish gift baskets to the girls every week, filled with delicacies and accompanied by notes lamenting how much Grandma missed Emily and Olivia. My brother, Kevin, suddenly started sending me invitations to family gatherings I'd never heard of before. We're having an intimate dinner next weekend. Just close family and a few friends. You absolutely have to be there. And bring the girls. A dinner party? How unusual that you've suddenly seen fit to include me in your social circle. Jenna, you're my sister. Of course, I want you to come. My sister. The same one who had recently urged me to be practical and put up with my husband's infidelity because divorce was a financial gamble. My father, Tom, started showing up at my house unannounced, claiming he was just passing by. Considering my neighborhood was a 40-minute toll road drive from his house, his frequent visits were clearly planned. Jenna, I've been thinking about the situation that arose over Thanksgiving, he said during one of these uninvited visits. Thinking? I think we just misunderstood each other's intentions. Your mother was genuinely concerned about gossip, but she never meant to exclude you from the family forever. Forever. As if a temporary exclusion was perfectly acceptable. Dad, what are you really looking for by coming here? I just want my family back together. I want Emily and Olivia to grow up with their grandparents. I want us to be the family we used to be. We could have been a family when I needed moral support during the divorce. We could have been a family when I was struggling to rebuild my life. We all made mistakes, Jenna. Can't we just put the past behind us and move on? Move on. Meaning, skip the part where they abandoned me during my darkest time and jump straight to the part where they could reap the benefits of my success. That same evening, after my father, Tom, left empty-handed once again, I came to an important conclusion. They weren't really sorry for what they did to me. They were sorry for the consequences of what they did. There is a chasm between deep remorse and simple regret for the outcome. My family was demonstrating the latter, while completely ignoring the former. What are your predictions for what happens next? Share your theories in the comments below this video. Suddenly, January brought an unforeseen but pleasant development into my carefully planned new existence. His name was Ethan Miller, and he embodied everything I didn't even know I was looking for. We met in a rather unexpected place, at Olivia's school play. I was sitting in the audience, trying to take a picture of my daughter's performance, when the man sitting next to me spoke to me during intermission. Excuse me, are you Olivia Wilson's mom? My name is Ethan, I'm Ava's dad. Our girls are in the same class. I finally got a good look at him. Tall, with a touch of silver in his hair, a charmingly open smile, and a calm confidence that spoke of inner peace. Ava was a quiet classmate with whom Olivia had recently become very close. Yes, I'm Jenna. Olivia talks about Ava all the time. Ava feels the same way. She keeps asking when she can see Olivia's new house and the pool. Olivia must have described the house in great detail during art class. Ava came home asking why we don't have a real movie theater. I couldn't help but laugh. Olivia has a tendency to exaggerate. We have a large screen in the basement that has transformed into a movie theater in her imagination. When the play ended and we walked to the parking lot together, Ethan asked if I could arrange a playdate for the girls, as Ava had requested. I could bring her over on the weekend. Or, if it's more convenient, both girls can play at our place. His demeanor was trustworthy. There were no hidden motives in his offer, no judgment of my situation or finances. Just a caring father wanting to support his daughter's friendship. Maybe you could both come over to our house on Saturday afternoon? The girls can swim in the pool if the weather allows, and you can judge the truth of Olivia's descriptions for yourself. Saturday turned out to be unusually warm for January, which certainly allowed for a swim in the pool. Ethan arrived with Ava, bringing a bottle of wine for the adults and a fresh batch of homemade cookies baked by Ava. You bake? I asked as Ava and Olivia ran screaming towards the pool. Ava bakes. I act as quality control and make sure nothing burns. She's had a cookie obsession since the holidays. Speaking of holidays, how was your Christmas? I asked. quiet and peaceful. Ava and I spent it just the two of us. We made pancakes for breakfast and watched old movies. Very relaxed. I continued the conversation. I know you're raising Ava on your own? He nodded, and there was no drama or bitterness in his voice. Yes, Ava lost her mother when she was only 4. We've been a team ever since. My internal lie detector was always on high alert after David, but Ethan seemed surprisingly genuine. As time went on, I realized I was truly enjoying our adult conversation, which never once touched on my divorce, family problems, or financial situation. Ethan turned out to be the owner of a small bookstore. He was passionate about his work and completely indifferent to ostentatious luxury. "You have a beautiful home," he noted when I showed him the rooms Ava had asked to hear about. "But honestly, the best part is seeing how happy Olivia is here. She has such a lively sparkle in her eyes, so much confidence. That's something you can't buy." "Thank you." It was tough for all of us while we were adjusting to a new life. Difficult changes affect children, but you're obviously handling everything brilliantly. As he was leaving that evening, Ethan voiced an idea that caught me off guard. He suggested we have dinner together sometime, emphasizing that it would be just the two of us, in a place where his daughter Ava couldn't pass judgment on my table manners. My answer was an affirmative and almost instinctive yes, before my mind had a chance to find a reason for doubt. Although we had only planned a modest dinner at a nearby place, our conversation turned out to be so captivating that we didn't notice we had become the last guests. We talked endlessly, touching on any topic but delicately avoiding those that could touch on our past difficulties. Instead of delving into the painful details of my divorce, my complex relationship with my family, or the personality of my ex-husband, our dialogue took a completely different path. We enthusiastically shared opinions on literature, made plans for distant lands, compared our parenting approaches, and mused on what it's like to start over from scratch after 30. "I have a confession to make," he said as we were approaching the parking lot. "Tonight made me a little nervous." "Why is that?" I asked, surprised. "Well, imagine this, a single dad who hasn't dated anyone is going on a date with a woman who, at first glance, has her life perfectly put together. It can be a bit intimidating." "You think my life is perfect, Ethan?" "Less than 2 years ago, my marriage to a gym director fell apart due to his infidelity, and my entire family turned their backs on me. Everything I'm doing now is pure improvisation." "In that case, your improvisation deserves a round of applause." In that very moment, a realization struck me, both exciting and a little scary. I was starting to develop deep feelings for a man who valued the real me, not the image of success or well-being I might project. By our third date, I gathered the courage to bring up a difficult topic. "Ethan, there's something you need to know about me. At the moment, I have completely cut off contact with my family." "May I ask what caused that?" I laid out my entire story for him, from beginning to end. He listened attentively, without interrupting or judging, only occasionally asking for clarification to fully understand. "So, your family didn't support you during your most difficult time, but they wanted to patch things up as soon as you got back on your feet." That's a very brief summary, but essentially, yes. "And how does that make you feel now?" No one had ever asked me such a direct question before. A mix of disappointment and anger, but also immense relief. I was finally able to see them without any illusions. "Your feelings are completely understandable. Sometimes, the ones who hurt us the most inadvertently help us become who we were always meant to be." Contrary to my plans, fate had decided that Ethan's introduction to my family would happen much sooner. As February arrived, an inevitable conflict was brewing, one where my past was set to collide with my present. Patricia, my mother, had redoubled her efforts on her mission to restore family ties, which in reality translated into intrusive and increasingly desperate invasions of my personal space. The boiling point was her unexpected appearance at my daughter's 8th birthday party. I had organized an intimate event at my home, inviting only Emily and Olivia's closest friends and their parents, as well as Ethan and Ava. The program consisted of simple joys, cake, pizza, and fun in the pool, which I had specially heated for the winter season. One of my daughters had even explicitly asked for no family drama on her birthday. This should have been a warning sign for me, as even an 8-year-old child could see the toxic atmosphere I had lived in for decades. The party was in full swing when my mother's car slowly pulled into the driveway. From the window, I saw her get out, clutching enormous presents and flashing her most impenetrable smile. "Jenna," her voice rang out as she walked into the house without knocking. "Surprise! I couldn't possibly miss my granddaughter's birthday." A sudden silence fell over the living room, and all conversation stopped mid-sentence. My daughters looked confused. Their friend's parents were clearly uncomfortable, and Ethan just raised an inquisitive eyebrow in my direction. "Mom, this is a private event. You weren't invited," I said as calmly as possible. "Oh, don't be ridiculous. I'm their grandmother." "My place is certainly here," she replied. One of the girls immediately ran to hug her, as it is in a child's nature to unconditionally love their relatives. My mother immediately began to put on a show for those present. "My darlings, you are just adorable," she cooed, addressing Emily and Olivia. "True birthday beauties." Then, scanning the room, she added, turning to me, "And your house, Jenna, is even more impressive in person than in the pictures." So, she had seen the pictures. That phrase confirmed that my social media page was an object of her intense scrutiny, almost like a dossier. One of my daughters took on the role of hostess. "Grandma, this is Ava, and this is her dad, Mr. Ethan." "What a pleasure to meet you," Patricia said, purposefully extending her hand to Ethan with barely concealed curiosity in her eyes. "My name is Patricia, I'm Jenna's mother." The next 45 minutes turned into my mother's one-woman show, as she circulated among the guests with the grace of an experienced diplomat at a reception. She showered compliments on each of the parents, showed a lively interest in their children's hobbies, and, at every opportunity, of which there were at least 3, inserted a phrase about how proud she was of my ability to adapt to changed life circumstances. Changed life circumstances. The phrase made it sound as if my achievements were merely a consolation prize for the hardships I had endured, rather than the fruit of my own efforts, will, and intellect. The climax of her performance came as I was dealing with the birthday cake. She took the opportunity to have a private conversation with Ethan in the kitchen. "Ethan, I'm told you own a bookstore." "What an intelligent profession," she began, creating an idealized image. "Jenna has loved to read since she was a child, just couldn't put books down." "Yes, she was always so thoughtful, and she became a wonderful mother. Just look at how Emily and Olivia have blossomed with her." Even from the dining room, I could hear snippets of their conversation. "Of course, it hasn't been easy for her, you understand, the divorce, so many changes, but she's holding up surprisingly well. We can't help but be proud of how she's managed to rebuild her life," my mother said. That we grated on my ears. She was speaking on behalf of the entire family, the very same family that had abandoned me just a few months ago. Ethan's response was a model of diplomacy. "Jenna seems like a wonderful person." "Oh yes, she is. And this house, just imagine. After that modest place she lived in with David, this mansion seems like a fairy tale," she gushed. As soon as the last guest had left and Emily and Olivia had run upstairs to unwrap their presents, the moment for the conversation I had been trying so long to avoid finally arrived. "Mom, please explain to me, what was the purpose of your visit today?" "I just wanted to wish my granddaughters a happy birthday." "Is that a crime? You wanted to invade my life uninvited and form your own opinion of the man I'm dating." "A new man? Jenna? I had no idea there was someone in your life." Of course, she had no idea. Our communication had ceased months ago, and that was entirely her decision. "His name is Ethan. He's a good man, and his feelings for me have nothing to do with my bank account. I never suggested otherwise. You spent the whole evening trying to convey to him what heights I've reached. As if that's the only thing that matters about me. I was just proud of you. You didn't have this pride when I decided to leave David. And you weren't proud when I stood up for myself. Your pride only appeared now, when my success reflects well on you too. At that moment, the mask of well-being was completely dropped. Jenna, you're being unreasonable. Yes, we made mistakes. But we are family, and in families, people forgive. Now that things are going well for you, now that you've met someone, maybe it's time to let the past go? No, Mom. It's not time. What do you want from us, Jenna? I looked at the woman who had raised me, who had taught me that family loyalty was paramount, and then demonstrated through her own example that her understanding of loyalty was a one-way street. I want you to realize one simple thing: you don't get to be my family only when it's convenient for you. After she left, I realized that her visit might have been the best thing that could have happened. Now Ethan had seen with his own eyes what I had to deal with. And despite it all, he didn't walk away. March brought news that overturned all my understandings of the divorce settlement. On a Tuesday morning, I received a call from my lawyer, Alicia Jones. The information she shared made me literally collapse onto a kitchen chair. Jenna, she said in a serious tone, we need to meet in person today. If it's at all possible. This time, the atmosphere in Alicia's office was completely different, tense and strictly professional. Files were neatly arranged on her desk, and her face held the expression of someone about to deliver life-changing news. Jenna, I continued to look into David's financial activities, and my search led to a very serious discovery, she began. Did you find more hidden accounts? I guessed. No, it's much bigger than that. David's gym is not just a successful business. It's a front for a money laundering scheme. Her words hung in the air, and my mind desperately tried to grasp their weight. A front for what, exactly? We're talking about millions of dollars that were funneled through his business accounts. The sources of these funds have no connection to the gym's activities. Our financial analyst identified anomalies that cannot be explained by a simple desire to hide income. I felt as if the walls of the office were closing in. My ex-husband, the man I had shared 5 years of my life with, the father of my daughters, was apparently running a criminal enterprise. How did you find this out? We traced transfers from shell corporations. We discovered large cash infusions that didn't match membership fee reports. We noticed purchases of gym equipment in volumes that far exceeded the needs of any real club. When we involved federal authorities, a clear and systematic scheme emerged. Alicia pushed a thick folder towards me. Its contents, bank statements, wire transfer reports, and incorporation documents, irrefutably proved the existence of organized financial crime. David has been laundering money for at least the last 3 years, possibly longer. The gym was the perfect cover. Cash payments for memberships and training services are normal in this business, and the purchase of expensive equipment doesn't raise questions. And importantly, Caitlin is an active participant. Her access to the company's accounts wasn't due to their affair, but her role in the operation. She was the one helping with transfers and negotiating with people who were clearly not coming to the gym to work out. A wave of nausea washed over me. It wasn't belated pity for David, but the chilling realization of how close my children and I had come to being entangled in a federal crime. Alicia, how will this affect me? What will happen to my divorce settlement? I asked, feeling a surge of anxiety. Legally, you are completely safe, she assured me. The divorce is finalized, and we can prove you had no knowledge of his illegal activities. All the assets you received are completely clean, which is documented. But, Jenna, this isn't the end of the story. Of course, it wasn't the end. For some reason, I hadn't doubted it. For over a year, federal agents have been building a case against David. They contacted me yesterday because they need your cooperation. My cooperation? You shared a home with him where he likely conducted business negotiations. You might have had access to his work computer, documents, call history. It's possible you saw or heard something that could be a key element in their investigation. My memory immediately flashed back to the countless late nights David supposedly spent working, his mysterious phone calls, and those business trips that never made sense. What happens if I agree to help? You will help send a criminal to prison and ensure he can never again be a threat to your daughters. And if I refuse? The investigation won't stop, but without your help, gathering irrefutable evidence could take longer. And, Jenna, that's not all the information you need to know. I wasn't sure if I could handle even one more piece of shocking news. David has attempted to revise the custody agreement. His lawyer has already filed a motion in court, claiming that your new, supposedly extravagant, lifestyle is evidence of your inability to provide a stable environment for the children. The irony was simply staggering. A man involved in criminal schemes was trying to paint me as a bad mother simply because I used my legitimate funds to buy a nice house. He currently has no idea that we know about his criminal activities, Alicia continued. But if he's fighting this hard for custody, it could mean he's planning to flee and intends to take the children with him. The very thought of David kidnapping my daughters and escaping justice sent a chill down my spine. That evening, after putting the children to bed, I called Ethan. Lately, he had become the person whose opinion I valued most in difficult situations. Ethan, I need to tell you something about David that I only found out about today, I began. As I recounted everything I had heard from Alicia, I watched his face grow more serious with each new detail. Ethan listened to me and, without hesitation, delivered his verdict. Jenna, cooperating with the investigation is the only right thing to do, and you need to do it immediately. Logic told me he was right, but a mother's fear was taking over. I'm scared, Ethan. Not for my own safety, but for what Emily and Olivia will have to go through. It just means one thing: their father is a criminal who has endangered their well-being for years, he said firmly. You are not hurting them, you are protecting them from a man who never deserved to be near them. His words gave me resolve. The next morning, I was dialing the number of the federal agent Alicia had given me. On a Thursday near the end of March, federal agents paid a visit to David's gym. At that time, my daughters were safe at their school desks, and I, in my living room, watched the finale unfold live. The footage of my ex-husband being led out of the building in handcuffs was broadcast on all local channels, and my phone immediately came to life. The first on the line was Alicia, confirming that the operation had gone as planned. Immediately after, a call came from my mother, who was obviously also watching the news and was now calling with feigned concern. Jenna, how awful. Poor Emily and Olivia, having to see their father on television like that. My poor girls were safe at school, completely unaware of the collapse of their father's criminal empire. I had taken care of everything in advance, arranging for them to spend the afternoon at Ethan's, far from the inevitable media storm. Mom, the girls are fine. They're protected, I replied in an even voice. But this scandal. What will people say now? What will people say? Even now, when it involved federal crimes, my mother's primary concern was reputation. People will think their father was a criminal and got what he deserved. You shouldn't speak about it with such satisfaction, she chided. I felt no joy that the father of my children was a criminal. But the thought that he would finally be held accountable for his actions brought me absolute satisfaction. However, the real blow came later, when Agent Aurora Griffin contacted me to report new details. Mrs. Wilson, we need to discuss a point that came up during the analysis of your ex-husband's correspondence. What is it? It turns out that some members of your family were in contact with David recently. They were providing him with information about your movements, your relationship with Ethan Miller, and your financial status. At that moment, the ground gave way beneath me again. What kind of information? The call logs leave no doubt, Agent Griffin continued. Over the last 4 months, numerous conversations were recorded between David's personal number and your mother's phone. During questioning, David confirmed that Patricia regularly informed him about your social media posts, the new man in your life, and details about your new home and financial situation. This news hit me with such force that I sank limply onto the sofa, trying to process yet another, the deepest, betrayal. Agent Griffin, what motive could my mother have had for communicating with my ex-husband? According to David's testimony, your mother initiated the contact. She reached out to him, expressing concern that you were feeling too confident in your new life circumstances. Her calculation was simple: if David managed to take the children from you, you would be in a desperate situation and forced to seek support from your family, returning to their control. The realization was like a physical blow. My own mother had colluded with my criminal ex-husband to strip me of my daughters and my independence. The woman who gave me life had joined forces with the man who had torn our family to shreds. Are there any legal consequences for my mother? I asked with difficulty. She was not aware of his criminal activities, so she won't face charges of complicity, Agent Griffin clarified. However, she knowingly passed on information that David used for the custody lawsuit against you. After ending the call, I sat in the silence of my new living room, the space I had built for myself from the ruins of my past marriage. And only then could I see the full picture of my family's betrayal in its true, monstrous scale. They didn't just turn away from me in my time of need, they actively tried to prevent me from getting back on my feet and finding freedom. At that moment, my phone lit up with a message from Ethan. The girls are perfectly fine, Ava is making them her signature grilled cheese sandwiches. Take your time, sort everything out at your own pace. His words were the key that unlocked the ultimate truth. The family I had mourned for so long, the relationships I had desperately tried to mend, it was all an illusion. I was grieving a fantasy, reaching out to people who were never on my side. But with this bitter epiphany came another, brighter one. I realized that I already had a real family, built not on blood, but on sincere love, mutual respect, and genuine support, my Emily and Olivia, and now Ethan and Ava. My relatives had taught me the most important lesson, they showed me, by their example, what a family should not be. And only by rejecting their model could I understand what it can and must be. That same evening, as the media frenzy died down and my daughters slept peacefully in their beds, I made an irreversible decision, one that would put a final end to my struggle for independence. I would tell my family exactly what I thought of their collusion with David, and then I would close that door forever. However, my plan was preceded by one important action. I needed them to fully comprehend the depth of their delusion about me, about my inner strength, and my ability to build a happy life without them. The little girl who had sought their approval for decades was gone forever. In her place stood a woman who had managed to build something beautiful on the very ruins they had helped create. The setting for the final conversation was my home. Everything had to happen on my terms and in the presence of my real family, who would witness the end of one chapter and the birth of another. One Sunday in early April, I sent an invitation to my parents, Tom and Patricia, and to my brother Kevin and sister Chloe. The pretext was a Sunday brunch to clarify the situation after David's arrest. They arrived expecting reconciliation, perhaps even an apology, and certainly a return to the family hierarchy that was so convenient for them. But instead, in my kitchen, they were met by Ethan and Ava, and my daughters, Emily and Olivia. Alongside them was Agent Griffin, who had kindly agreed to be present in case any questions arose regarding the federal investigation. Jenna, what is going on here? My mother's voice was tense, she was clearly uncomfortable in this formal setting. This is the conversation we should have had a year and a half ago. Please, sit down. I had prepared for this moment for a long time, organizing my thoughts and deciding exactly what needed to be said. No more fake family politeness. No more attempts to avoid conflict. No more protecting their feelings at the expense of my own truth. I want each of you to understand what really happened on the day of David's arrest, and the role you all played in the events that led to it. Agent Griffin stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson. My name is Aurora Griffin, I represent the FBI. During our investigation into David's criminal activities, we determined that Mrs. Patricia Wilson supplied him with information regarding Jenna's personal life and financial situation. Tom, my father, visibly paled. He turned to his wife with a silent question, Patricia, what does this mean? The carefully constructed mask of self-control on my mother's face cracked. I was only trying to do what was best, she began to justify. Jenna was pushing the family away so stubbornly, and David seemed like someone who genuinely cared about his daughters. Mom, I interrupted her. David was laundering money for criminal organizations. The information you gave him was used to fabricate a custody case that was supposed to help him kidnap my children and flee the country. I didn't know, she stammered. You didn't know because you weren't interested. You were so obsessed with proving I was a failure without you that you colluded with a man who had already betrayed all of us. Kevin, my brother, tried to defend her. Jenna, that's not fair. Mom was just worried about you. Worried? I laughed bitterly. She uninvited me from Thanksgiving because my divorce was casting a shadow on the family's reputation. She leaked details about my relationship with Ethan, my finances, and my daughter's lives to David. Her actions were aimed against me, not at protecting me. My gaze shifted to Chloe. And your complicity was no less. All those family holidays I wasn't invited to. All those talks about how I needed to be wise about David's infidelity. All the hints that the appearance of a family was more important than my personal dignity. Jenna, but we love you, Chloe said uncertainly. No. You don't love me, you love your own fiction of me, I replied. A convenient version who silently endures any treatment, puts your comfort above her own happiness, and stays in destructive situations just so her pain doesn't inconvenience you. Ethan came and stood beside me. His mere presence was a silent reminder that I now had people in my life whose support was unconditional. But there's one thing you never understood about me, I said, feeling my voice grow stronger. I didn't need your approval to rebuild my life. I didn't need your permission to become successful. And I didn't need your blessing to love again. My gaze swept across the kitchen, which had become a living embodiment of my new life. There were Emily and Olivia helping Ava set the plates. There was Agent Griffin, whose presence was irrefutable proof of the complete collapse of David's criminal world. And there was Ethan, who looked at me with a smile full of genuine pride and admiration. Everything you see here, I said, I created not just without your support, but in spite of your active resistance and all your attempts to stop me. Tears began to roll down my mother's face. But they were not tears of remorse. They were the tears of a person who had just realized the final loss of leverage over a situation she had never truly controlled. Jenna, what do you want from us? My father asked wearily. I want you to understand one thing, I don't need anything from you anymore. I once desperately wanted you to be my family, but you made the choice to become my adversaries. So this is the end, he stated. You're cutting us out of your life for good. I'm not cutting you out. I'm simply accepting the reality of who you are and who you have always been. I spent 35 years of my life trying to earn a love that should have been unconditional by birthright. I don't intend to spend another day on that mistake. Agent Griffin tactfully excused herself. Her mission here was complete. The fact of my family's betrayal had been presented dryly and irrefutably, without emotional manipulation. As my parents, brother, and sister were heading for the exit, my mother made one last desperate attempt to regain control. Jenna, you will regret this. Family is forever. One day you will need us, and we won't be there. I looked at this woman who had taught me that love can be conditional, that family can be a weapon, and that loyalty in her world is a one-way street. Mom, I have needed you, and you weren't there. The only difference is that now, I don't need you anymore. After the door closed behind them, Ethan found me in the backyard. I was watching Emily, Olivia, and Ava playing in the pool, despite the April chill. They were laughing, splashing water, and creating the very memories that would, in the future, define for them what a real family is. How are you? He asked quietly. Free, I replied, and in that moment, I knew it was the purest truth. Just a few months ago, I was a woman whose identity was defined by others' expectations, whose life was confined by the limits of others' approval. Now, I was Jenna Wilson, successful, independent, and surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I am. The family that had rejected me had, without knowing it, given me the greatest gift of all. They had forced me to become the woman I was always meant to be. And that woman was magnificent.